Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. People often ask me about tier lists for minis in Warcraft Rumble, but I haven't made a tier list of my own. This actually is a fansite tier list. It could be any fansite tier list, it doesn't really matter, it's just for illustration purposes. Because I don't think tier lists are necessarily all that useful in this game. Yeah, you might be able to get some indication, especially of stuff like rated tier S, that hey, okay, maybe this kind of stuff goes into multiple decks and it's sort of useful, but you can't really build a deck based on a tier list. Like if I were to take this tier list, seems to show that I would need to build a deck of Defies Bandits, Earth Elemental, Quillbore, Safe Pilot, Whelp Eggs, and then if we take then we take a Blizzard. Would that be a good deck? No, it wouldn't really be a good deck. It would be quite Unbound heavy. For example, it would lack punch quite a lot. It just wouldn't be a very strong deck. But that's using the highest rated minis, so why isn't it a good deck? Or conversely, if I were to build a deck where I would use something like Molten Giant and Vultures, they might actually go really well in a deck together, and possibly together with Charga as well. They might all fit into a deck together and I could build a good deck around those three. Yeah, I totally could, but they're tier D. Like, it doesn't make sense. But that's because all minis play a role in this game, and I think pretty much all minis are useful. Probably all minis are useful. The couple that I haven't learned how to use, I probably just haven't learned how to use them yet. But I have used the majority of minis, I've used the majority of minis successfully. When you know what you want the mini to do, then you can be successful with a mini. So instead of tier lists, you should think about roles. Roles that you want your army to fulfill. What sort of roles do all of these slots have to fill in, and what minis are the best options for this specific army to fill that role? That's the real thinking. So let's think about roles a little bit. For example, a team needs a tank, and let's say I want to put in a big tank. Let's put a big tank and smash. So there's 6 big tanks in this game. There's the Abomination, there's the Molten Giant, there's the Footman, there's the Warzone Grunts, there's the Corehounds, there's the Fire Elemental. Which big tank do I put in my team? Well, that sort of depends. It's not so that one tank would always be superior to others. Although I have to say that out of these 6, generally, it's either the Abomination or the Fire Elemental that tends to be the best. But not always. So, yeah, some minis are really strong, but all minis have their uses. Like Molten Giant and Footman, for example, are armored. For example, in Heroic Murkai, I had one of those openers where there's a lot of physical damage coming in right at the start, and Footmen were actually the only tank that got through that really cleanly, really well. Footmen because armored squad was just the perfect answer for that. Single target damage coming in. Yeah, that's just beautiful. Then Fire Elemental and Corehounds, they are resistant. They have some differences too. Corehounds can resurrect each other. Fire Elemental deals area damage. Fire Elemental is actually a super good tank when you need an elemental resistant tank that deals AoE damage. Fire Elemental is just wonderful. Abomination also deals AoE damage. It can deal a little bit more damage than Fire Elemental, and it can hook ranged enemies, so if you need to grab a backliner, then Abomination is really good at that. But it's neither armored nor it's resistant, so if you need to have resistance to either physical damage or elemental damage, then maybe Abomination is not your choice. And then there's the Warzone Grunts. Warzone Grunts out of these tanks is probably the one that I have used the least. They do have Fury, so they start to hit harder and harder, well, faster and faster actually, and they deal a lot of single target damage, sustained damage, while being tanky. So yeah, they do have their uses. So if you think about your team, okay, do I need a big tank? If I need a big tank, then what does that big tank need to do? Does it need to do area damage? Does it need to hook something? Does it need to be resistant? Does it need to be armored? And there is an answer for all of those circumstances. But sometimes you don't need a big tank. Sometimes you, for example, need a fast tank. You need your tank to get to places really quickly. And, well, we have like Stonehoof Tauren. Stonehoof Tauren is the bulkiest of these fast-moving tanks, almost a big tank by itself. Also deals a whole bunch of damage, really sweet unit. But there's also Prowler, which is sort of like Stonehoof Tauren. except the Prowler only has half the health of a Tauren. But Prowler is faster, and it charges at the end, and with talents it can also stun, and it can have stealth, it can have all sorts of abilities. But even without talents, it's a little bit different profile, and it's cheaper. Sometimes your army is just becoming too expensive, and okay, I need a fast tank, but I can't afford 4 gold. Well, I put in a Prowler then. And then we also have the Warsong Raider. I have played a bunch with Warsong Raider because Warsong Raider is actually a pretty fun unit. It's a hybrid unit, it's a tank, but it also does siege damage, so it's also good against towers. It actually kills towers pretty quickly, and it runs quite fast to those towers. So sometimes there's just an opening for Warsong Raider. I know Warsong Raider is not really a meta choice, but I have had great success using Warsong Raider. Like, it's a wonderful mini in the right team, and that's what it's all about, really. And sometimes you just need a tank, you just need some tank that you can play real cheap. And we have answers for that one too. Because we have stuff like Ghoul, and Nullbrute, and Harvest Golem, and Quillbore, and Earth Elemental. And then, the mini that I struggle the most to use right now is actually the Mountaineer. Because Mountaineer is like a fairly small tank, together with a single target ranged damage dealer and a healer. Yeah, that's kind of nice, but you lack flexibility. What if you had those two minis separately? And then you would be able to cycle your deck better, and you would be able to use flexible whenever you need one or the other. Now it comes as a package deal, and that's a little awkward to use sometimes. But I'm sure I'm actually going to make it my mission to find uses for Mountaineer. I will. I absolutely will. It's not going to be bad. It's going to be great. Out of the other small tanks, well, Ghoul. Ghoul is ravenous. Ghoul eats corpses. Ghoul doesn't attack when it's eating a corpse, but it's kind of hard to kill a Ghoul while it's eating a corpse. It actually can take a lot of punishment. Nullbrute has an AoE attack. I have actually used Nullbrute's AoE attack a few times. When I needed a cheap tank, I couldn't afford an Abomination. I wanted AoE damage. Hey, Nullbrute. Let's go, Null. Let's do this. There are uses for that one too. Harvest Golem. Harvest Golem is really sturdy, and it resurrects. It's actually pretty good, and it has great talents too. So with talents it gets even better. Then we have the Quillbore Earth Elemental duo. Okay, so they can be positioned anywhere, so they can actually serve in the fast tank category as well in some ways. Quillbore is resistant, Earth Elemental is armored. Quillbore doesn't do a lot of damage. Earth Elemental does a lot of damage, but only to towers and bosses, and it ignores others, so it can sometimes just go away while you're like, hey, Earth Elemental, come tank here. No, I'm out of here. I see a tower over there. That's where I'm headed. So, a little bit different uses, competing for the same space. So they were both rated tier S in that example tier list, for example. But Quillbore and Earth Elemental, you very rarely play both. I have actually played both once at least, so even that can happen. Sometimes you just need more of that stuff. But yeah, small tanks. There's also multiple aspects to think about there. And as we move on from tanks into dealing damage, then we could think about this in many different ways. We can think about melee, we can think about ranged, we can think about single target, we can think about area of effect, we can think about damage to ground units, we can think about damage to air units. And whatever combination of those things you need, there's going to be a mini for that. There's absolutely going to be a mini for that. So if we think about melee damage dealers, many of the melee damage dealers are actually quite small units, cycle units. You need cheap units in your deck, because if your average cost is too high, then you will just never get your miner, for example, because you're just dropping units so slowly, you won't get the miner again, so you can't mine gold, and that's going to suck. But even the small units, like Device Bandits, was rated tier S in that example tier list. Well, Device Bandits have stealth and they have stun. They're really super flexible. They don't actually deal a whole lot of damage though. Whereas something like Angry Chickens, if Angry Chickens go uncontested, they can actually deal a lot of damage. If there's mostly single target damage, slow attacking single target damage, then Angry Chickens can totally overwhelm that. It's crazy. Raptors, sort of a compromise, but also can swarm with some additional gold. Skeletons, they're unbound, you can use them anywhere. Spiderlings have poison. Poison is actually pretty strong. If you've seen poison harpies in action with the talent, then poison can eat through a lot of stuff. Vultures. Vultures can also do some things, and they can multiply, that's good. Worgen. Worgen has a lot of damage actually. Worgen is one of my favorite, like, off-meta damage dealers. It just comes in from stealth and starts hitting things, and it deals so much damage. Harp is of course one of the meta picks. Harpies deal a ton of damage, but they do need to get in close to do that, and they're really squishy and a squad unit, so they're quite easily killed, unless you can divert the attention elsewhere. But so many options for melee damage dealing. And if you want to deal damage at range, then you have the option to deal single target or AoE. And for single target, there's again a whole bunch of options. That will be quite fragile, quite high damage units. Troll, really strong damage dealer, deals physical damage. Firehammer and Necromancer both deal elemental damage. Necromancer deals more damage immediately than a Firehammer, but Firehammer deals more sustained damage because it has Fury, so it just keeps attacking faster and faster and faster. So again, like, are we looking at killing some individual big target? If you want to kill a Gargoyle or a Molten Giant, Firehammer can really bring in the power there, even more so than Necromancer. And Darkspear Troll wouldn't be that great against those armored targets. Then we have Skeleton Party, which is unbound, potentially useful but really fragile. Then Griffin Rider, Murloc Tidehunters, bringing some of that ranged capabilities, also anti-air capabilities if needed, at a really cheap price, but they don't deal nearly as much damage overall as a Troll or Firehammer or Necromancer does. So again, how much gold can you afford in your army for this slot? What is the target? What are you trying to kill? Griffin Rider is great at killing all sorts of small targets, for example, at a very long range too. And it's flying, so it doesn't have to worry about what's going on in the ground. Just a lot of options, and none of these are useless. And the same goes for area damage. For area damage, Huntress is quite unique, because Huntress deals physical damage and Huntress is resistant to elemental damage, so Huntress fills a niche pretty much by herself. That's why also many players love Huntress. All the others are elemental damage. They have different ranges, different speeds, different amount of damage. You can compare like Ogre Mage and Pyromancer. Pretty similar. Ogre Mage costs more, but it can Bloodlust, another mini, and it can take a lot more punishment. Pyromancer is a lot more fragile. Both have their places. And we have Batrider, we have Plague Farmer. Quite similar again. Plague Farmer actually has longer range than Batrider, but Plague Farmer is on the ground while Batrider is in the air. Sometimes that's the difference, like what can the opponent attack. We have Safe Pilot, we have Whelpex, we have some Unbound action here as well. Then Drakes and Flamewakers. Drake can attack air, Flamewaker only attacks ground. Flamewaker has a longer range than Drake, Flamewaker has more health than Drake. On the other hand, Drake can deal more damage. So there's a lot of variations. And again, I have played with all of these minis, and all of these minis are useful. Then when we want to take down some towers, we again have multiple options. We have Earth Elemental, we have Gargoyle, we have Goblin Sappers, we have Meatwagon, we have Awesome Raider. Gargoyle has the most survivability. It's a huge tank with armored. Meatwagon has the most range, especially with the ranged talent. Meatwagon can often attack without being aggroed, so it can just hit everything from really far away. Raider is the fastest to get where you want it to be. Earth Elemental, of course, as an unbound is maybe even faster in that sense, but Raider deals more damage than Earth Elemental, so yeah, a little bit of choice between those if you really want to get somewhere fast. Sappers can instantly take down an equal level tower, but Sappers are consumed in the process because they just explode, so they're single use, but they're the cheapest. Like, so many options. And actually in some of the maps I have like used pretty much all of these. For example, in some of the dungeons I did them with Gargoyle, I did them with Meatwagon, I did them with Sappers. And all were viable. I think I liked Gargoyle the best without talents, but then Meatwagon with range or Sappers with rocket boots then maybe became better, or at least close. But then again, you could then add Gargoyle talent as well, so it gets complicated when you add talents into the mix. But even without the talents, all of these minis play a role. I have used all of these minis successfully again. So What did the tier list give us really, again? And the same kind of continues with damage spells. Blizzard is the fan favorite. Blizzard deals a good chunk of damage and it slows enemies. What is there not to like? Well, Blizzard might be the most general purpose one of these, but all the other ones have their uses as well. Chain Lightning, for example, kills whelp eggs because it pops the egg, kills the whelp, pops the egg, kills the whelp, so it just destroys them completely. Living Bomb, whenever there's a large group of enemies, some dungeons for example, Living Bomb them and boom, it's just awesome. Or Execute. Execute deals the most damage to high health targets, but obviously Execute can never kill a low health target immediately because it deals maximum 50% damage. Unless it's higher level, but even then it doesn't deal 100%. So Execute on big minis, Execute on bosses sometimes, can just do wonders. Something that no other spell can do. So there's uses for everything. Holy Nova can heal. There's very little healing in this game. So Holy Nova also has a unique niche. All of these have their niches. Even when thinking about the Unbound minis, sure, you often see Safe Pilot, you very often see Quillbore, Whelp Eggs, but all of the Unbound minis have a little bit different niches and all of these are playable as well. Dark Miner with the mining, Earth Elemental can be a tank, Quillbore can be a tank, Safe Pilot deals the damage, Skeleton Party, also modified by talents, can be quite a big damage dealer. Skeletons, especially with the Exhume talent, can be a very powerful attacking force at only 2 gold. Super cheap, super strong. Whelp Eggs, well, again, talent is quite crucial for them, but they just blow everything up. And that Worgen just deals a lot of single target damage, not to be underestimated. And finally, you can also add utility to your deck. Dark Eye Miner, remote mining, whenever there is a map where the gold veins are a little bit awkwardly located, I'm immediately thinking, hey, maybe this is a map where I want a Dark Eye Miner in my team. Banshee, hey, opponent is using multiple big minis. Okay, I see, maybe I should steal one of those. Unless they're like Torrents and Firehammers and they kill the Banshee before Banshee gets to steal them, so again, context matters. Forceful Shaman, delivering that healing. Healing is at a premium in this game. Polymorph is just wonderful utility. Polymorph plus Harpies, for example, means that Harpies can actually kill most of the threats that wouldn't usually kill Harpies, because you can just polymorph them and then Harpies will kill them and Harpies will carry on. And Cheat Death, Smoke Bomb, more utility with stealth, with keeping your minis alive just a little bit longer. That sort of things can also find a place in your deck. And this would be really hard to rate in like a tier list. How good is a Dark Eye Miner? Well, what map are you playing on? So, yeah, tier lists just don't really capture nearly all of the essence of Warcraft Rumble. And in order to get beyond the tier list, you have to start thinking about the roles that the minis are going to play in your army. And which roles do you want fulfilled to complete a specific mission or to play PvP in a specific meta? And then build your army from there. And so far, from my perspective, all minis have their place. There are no unplayable minis in this game. None. They're all playable. And all it takes is finding the right place and the right time and the right army. And any mini can shine. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.